Hello. Thank you for tuning in. This is Zenith Glow Astrology, the podcast, the very first podcast ever. My name is Christina, and I want to say thank you so much for listening and for giving this a chance. We'll see how it goes. I make no promises, but I just wanted to try something new. I've been writing my blog for a little while now. I have a lot of people that have been reading that since I started, and I want to say thank you so much to all of you for your support. Thank you for caring about what I have to say, and thank you for listening to this now. So this is kind of an experiment. Let's have some fun with it. We're not going to take it too seriously, but yeah, let's see how this goes. So this first episode, we're actually going to just dive all in, and we're going to talk about all of 2025. Okay, we won't talk about all of it, but we're going to talk about some of the really important things that are standing out for us next year, astrologically, but also just in like a general esoteric energy theme kind of way. So, yeah, let's get into it. Before we go forward, though, we need to go back, right? So let's revisit some of the themes from 2024. We started the year in Chinese astrology, the year of the wood dragon. Oh man, I don't know about you guys, but this year has been super intense for me. And a lot of the people that I've talked to have been experiencing the same thing. It's just been an incredible year of transformation and just so much power and so much just deep, deep change that has happened with a lot of people. So yeah, the wood dragon. Dragons obviously represent transformation and transmutation and power. And they are excellent archetypes for this. They are also magical creature companions that we all have. And when we tune into their energy, they can help us harness this kind of power for ourselves, which is what they were doing this year. They returned and they were helping all of us kind of shift into our higher expressions, higher dimensions of ourselves. And then the element of wood is all about growth and stability. So, kind of interesting. It's almost like two juxtaposed energies because you have the dragon, which is trying to facilitate change and it's very fiery. And then you have wood, which you would think would just like burn up in that fire, but it doesn't. It's very grounded and persistent, and it represents growth. So, I mean, if you think about like bamboo is incredibly sturdy and strong and just incredibly abundant. It just grows and grows and grows. So, especially once it takes root. So that's what this year has been all about. You know, it's change and transformation, kind of getting rid of what doesn't work for us anymore, what doesn't serve our highest good, what's not in alignment with our soul's mission, but then also laying down roots with the things that do align with where we're headed and what we're meant to do. And so, yeah, I don't know. How has it been for you guys? It's been pretty nuts for me, I will say. I actually moved across the country, and it was a totally gnarly move. Yeah, I can't even go into it because I tried talking to a friend of mine after I made the move, and she was like, "Well, how did it go?" And then we proceeded to talk for like 3 hours because it took me that long to tell the story and to actually detail all the crazy twists and turns that took place. So I'll just say that it was like a dark night of the soul, and it was highly catalyzing for me. So incredibly challenging to move through, but now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm experiencing so much profound spiritual transformation and so many upgrades, and just like the expansion is so intense, but also really beautiful. And I would say that pretty fairly encompasses the energy of the wood dragon. So this year, numerologically, it was also a universal 8 year. And the number 8 is all about its infinity, obviously, and it's about power at its core. And again, dragon's power. So we sort of had this energy extra highlighted, extra underscored for us. Yeah, power, and it's also related to cycles of time and karma. And when you're in, like, for example, when you're in your 8 personal year in numerology, it actually will highlight for you all the themes of power, kind of similar to how Pluto operates in astrology. So the ways that you are abusing your power, or when you are put into situations that disempower you, either way, whatever side of the spectrum you're on, and often we're in both positions at different times, it will highlight those themes for you to get you to find balance. That's really what this year has been about in a universal kind of way for all of us with this wood dragon energy. So, and then also, yeah, karma and cycles of time. I don't know about you guys, but I've had like a lot of stuff from my past rear up to be dealt with, things that I thought that I had already dealt with, really like clearing all of the karmic and energetic clutter, trying to get like a fresh, clean slate before we move forward so that we can, yeah, paint something new and beautiful on that canvas. Anyway, I am so self-conscious doing this right now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being so graceful and putting up with my lack of professionalism. So, yeah, this year we also had Jupiter moving into Gemini. Lots of emphasis on our perceptions and thought patterns and manifestations, what we are bringing into reality through our perceptions, what we want to see brought into reality, kind of coming head to head with what we've already created and then deciding, how do I want to change this? I would say that's one of those themes that this dragon energy has been helping us to transform and to shift into a higher octave. So, yeah, that's been really interesting. And then also a lot of blessings with that too, because Jupiter is about opportunity and grace and blessing. It not only magnifies things for us, but it also brings in a little bit of that fortune and niceness. It's one of those more pleasant planets to deal with, usually. Yeah, maybe you've made some new friends. Maybe you've learned some new things. Maybe you're studying something new. I know that I am, and that's something that I will talk about later when I'm done studying. I will announce what I've been studying and share that with you all. But yeah, these are just some of the things that Gemini deals with. Another huge thing, Pluto moved into Aquarius officially. It finished its turn through Capricorn. It's been in Capricorn since 2008 for the last 16 years. We've been really, really dealing with a lot of like heaviness because Pluto in Capricorn is very dense energy. As it got into the final degrees of Capricorn, that's when we entered 2020. And we all know what happened then. And just the types of, again, Pluto is about power, similar to the dragons, and about the shadow. And so it really highlighted for us, like, how is power being wielded in hierarchical structures, in government, on the world stage, in these, like, public domains. But then also, we have the personal level as well. And Capricorn really has a lot to do with your personal authority, how you take charge in your own life. Do you cater to how other people see you, or do you stand true in your own moral compass and ethics and dedicate yourself to your own path regardless of public opinion? Those are kind of the two sides of the Capricorn coin. And then it's also about tradition. It's about like forging ahead, but looking back. So I don't know, kind of interesting, but we're done with it now. So you can say goodbye to that. We're not going to see that again for another like 250 years. But yeah, so Pluto in Aquarius. Now we're bringing in the Aquarius energy. The energy is a little bit lighter, even though it's Pluto. Pluto is always going to be dense and heavy, but Aquarius themes can feel a little bit lighter for a lot of people. Not for everyone, but yeah. Another big thing, Mars retrograde. We're in this right now. It's going on until February 23rd. So we're concluding the year with a Mars retrograde. This happens about every 2 years. And because Mars is one of the personal planets, we feel it very acutely. So if you've been feeling kind of like low energy and unmotivated, and having weird like exes pop up into your life randomly, or just kind of really digging deep into what you really want for yourself, for your life, or feeling frustrated because what you're experiencing doesn't align with those things, just know that this is kind of par for the course. And it's all there to serve us. It's there to help us go inward and reflect and try to make changes where they're needed. And then the other important thing that happened this year, among all the other little things, is we had a new eclipse axis that was introduced. So we concluded our Taurus Scorpio axis last year, and we had the very last eclipse in those signs. And then this year we had our first Pisces eclipse that was introduced in September. And so now we will have Pisces Virgo eclipses for the next couple of years. And we're still going through the Aries and Libra eclipses, but those are actually about to wrap up as well. And we will discuss that soon. Those are some of the highlights from 2024. I think at the end of the year, it's a really nice time to kind of reflect on this stuff, obviously, and consider, get really wistful and really philosophical and really deep about yourself, and write a biography about yourself and journal so that the historians can read about the remarkable changes you made in the year 2024. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Anyway. Okay. Let's keep going. 2025. One of the big things I wanted to talk about, even though I don't specialize in Chinese astrology, I'm definitely paying attention more nowadays because I find it incredibly interesting and relevant. We are going to be entering the year of the wood snake. So we have the same element, wood, repeating again, but we have a new animal theme that we are dealing with. So Lunar New Year this year, it's going to be on January 29th, 2025. And that is when we will officially enter into the energy of the snake. The wood snake. Yeah. What does the snake mean? This is incredibly profound energy that we're dealing with. And it doesn't really surprise me when you look at it with the numerology and then you look at it with the astrology. Everything together kind of flows really nicely together. That was a little redundant, but yeah, everything flows really harmoniously, really synergistically. And there is a general theme of like really big transformation going on right now. Starting with the snake. Before I get into stuff, I want you to know I wrote an article about Ophiuchus last year, and this is incredibly relevant to this snake symbolism because Ophiuchus, as the 13th sign, it's actually the snake bearer. It has a lot to do with healing and alchemy and DNA and transformation. And we actually just finished Ophiuchus season. So, because it goes through the end of November through about mid to late December. So, if you want to learn more about that, I actually wrote a really, really deep dive, long, lengthy article about that. If you just go to my Substack and search for Ophiuchus, you'll find the article there. Or if you're on Truth Social, you can find me over on Truth Social, and I actually reposted that article. The Year of the Snake. Snakes are really interesting because they kind of have a bad rap. Honestly, I think that this is intentional. I think it's an intentional inversion because I think snakes are strongly tied into the feminine. And when I say the feminine, I'm not talking about like the women's movement or something like political. I'm talking about energy. And there is a suppression of the feminine. And of course, like anyone that studies this stuff knows that the women's movement was also a hijack and an inversion of that. So, I'm not claiming to be a feminist or anything like that. I'm saying that the feminine in all of us has been suppressed. It's been intentionally hijacked and it's been intentionally attacked. Why would that be? Because the feminine, it's all about receptivity. It's all about passivity, but it's also about going inward. It's about healing. It's about nurturing. It's about love. It has to do with the Divine Mother. It has to do with unconditional love, universal love. And it also has to do with connecting to our deeper psychic senses and our intuition and our inner knowing and that ability that we all carry to read the signs and tap into our inner wisdom that is totally unique to each individual person. And we can all do this. We all have this available to us now at any given moment. It's just something that we have to tap into. This is something that has been subverted, repressed, suppressed, whatever. It's been messed with for a very long time. And that's because when you connect with your inner source of wisdom and your higher guidance system, it cannot be infringed upon, right? If you're always looking to external authority to tell you what to do and what to think, that can be messed with. That can be infringed upon. But when you're going inward, no one can really mess with that. And that has to do with feminine energy. And it also has to do with snakes, because snakes are symbols of wisdom. And they are symbols for healing, and they are symbols for transformation. And honestly, if you look back at our mythology, there's a lot of really juicy nuggets that you can pull out of there to see how powerful snakes really are. And then, of course, you can also see, or maybe ask yourself, how was this possibly inverted? Could this be a distortion of the real truth? So I won't get into all of that because, we've all got things to do. But I do want to just mention that snakes really are tied into the feminine. And so we will see more of this rise of the feminine in all of us. And again, this isn't about like man or woman. We all have masculine and feminine in all of us. And when we tap into that feminine power, we can really manifest big. And we can also balance it with the masculine. And when we are balanced, that's when you move into Hieros Gamos, and just magical things happen. Truly magical things happen. You step into the fullness of who you are, and it's really beautiful. Snakes. Themes of snakes: healing, transformation, divination, power, time, cycles, Ouroboros. So again, we have this kind of theme of karma and timelines coming around again, right? The Ouroboros is the snake eating its tail. And so it represents the cycles of time. It's also the infinite because it's like the 0 point. And when we step out of time, we enter into the 0 point. And when we're in the 0 point, that's when we can manifest big time. So there's a lot of really good energy that goes along with snakes when you tap into their wisdom. And I do highly recommend that you spend some time in meditation and just ponder, like, what does this mean for you? And how can you best utilize this energy? In addition to it being the year of the wood snake. Oh, and then wood again. We have that energy of growing and moving into laying down roots and becoming strong in who you are. Except now we're shifting from dragon, which is transformation, and alchemy, and kind of like a fiery, like, if it doesn't work, burn it kind of energy. And now we're moving into snakes, which is more of a softer kind of energy, a more intuitive energy. And again, like, snakes are about transformation as well, though. It's just kind of a different game. They shed their skin when they're ready to transform. And that's what each of us is going to be doing. We're going to be letting go. We're going to be healing. We're going to be going deep into ourselves. There's kind of this theme of like homeopathy where the poison is the cure. And so we go into our shadow selves and we realize that we need to get in touch with those darker aspects of ourselves in order to heal properly and finally transcend the things that have been holding us back from ourselves, our highest potential, and our most organic timelines. Okay, so the numerology for this year is going to be 9. So this is big because 9 is all about culmination. In numerology, it is like the end point, right? Because then we enter the number 10 and then you do 1 plus 0. So we go back to 1. The number 9 is like the end point of the 9-year cycle in numerology. So the number 9, it has to do with coming to a climax in your life. And this is a universal year, by the way. So we're all going to be feeling this energy collectively. So as a collective, we're coming to some kind of a crescendo. 9 is when we really review all the things that we have experienced or accumulated or are embodying in our lives, and we decide, what do I want to take with me as I move into this next 9-year cycle? What is good and what do I want to bring with me? What wisdom have I gained? And then what is really not serving me anymore and what do I want to let go of? We're going to have that theme. So again, kind of like shedding your skin, shedding the layers of yourself that don't serve you anymore. So 9 really is about healing. It's about learning your final lessons. So if there's anything you haven't learned, if there's any like particular areas of karma or life lessons that you've been working on, this is the year. It's going to come up for you. It's going to rear its head, and the snake is there to kind of help you deal with that energy and find healing and be empowered to find empowerment within that. So yeah, releasing what no longer serves you. And then 9 is also about service to others. I think that this year will actually be really, really catalyzing for those of us on the spiritual path. If you haven't already, this could be the year that you really step into your soul mission and you figure out what it is that you're meant to do, and you find your tribe and you align with what it is that your soul is calling you to do. And then, yes, number 9 is also a Tesla number, one of the 369. So again, it's that culmination. Tesla talked about 369, 3 being about creation, 6 being about the bridge, kind of like the alchemy, and then 9 being like the God number, the connection. You could think of 3 as like the physical creation, 6 is like the bridge between spirit and matter, and then 9 would be like spirit. So it's really going into that higher dimension, that upgrade, that higher timeline, higher potential. Really light and fluffy year. We can all just like sit back and put our feet up and not care about anything. Just kidding. So yeah, number 9 often catapults or alchemizes us into our mission. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing. Also, numerologically, when you're looking at your personal years, there's something in numerology called the 3-year push. And it's when you enter into your 8, 9, and 1 years. And it's the 3-year push because this tends to be a particularly intense time for people. And so that's true on a personal level, but we're also going through this as a collective. So you do have your personal number, and that might be different. I'm entering into a 5-year this next year, and that will be like the most conscious, predominant theme for me, but kind of like continually going in the background. There's going to be this 9 energy, and we're all participating in it on a collective level, kind of similar to how the outer planets operate in astrology. Really exciting to see how that's going to be turning out for us. So yeah, the 3-year push, you have the 8, which you deal with like karma and past cycles and empowerment or disempowerment and those types of things. It also has to do with abundance and money. And then 9 is the culmination, releasing what doesn't serve you, stepping into your mission, being of service to others. And then 1, initiation, new beginnings, standing out, stepping out on your own, becoming independent, beginning a new cycle. Super intense. Let's talk about some other things that are going on this year. First of all, we begin this year with healing energy because on December 30th, Chiron, not on December 30th, but at the very end of this year, Chiron is going direct. Where did I write that down? Here it is, December 29th. December 29th, Chiron will go direct in Aries at 19 degrees. As you know, if you've been reading my retrograde articles, when planets station either direct or retrograde, it means that they're kind of like coming to a stop before they actually change direction. So they sit at the same degree, usually for several days, depending on how fast that planet moves. And so it's sort of like this really, really intense energy. We feel that very acutely, at least for a few days. Because Chiron goes direct on December 29th, we're going to be feeling that energy as we move into the new year. Chiron is the wounded healer. So this goes really nice with our sneak theme and kind of this energy of healing and dealing with old wounds. As well, we have a Capricorn new moon on December 30th at 9 degrees 43 minutes of Capricorn. Capricorn was a big deal this year. Like I said, Pluto took its last turn through Capricorn before officially moving into Aquarius for the next 20 years. So it's really interesting that we're kind of concluding the year, literally like at the very tippy end point of the year, with a Capricorn new moon, because new moons, as you know, are about planting new seeds. They are about new beginnings and a new chapter opening up. And so that's really interesting that right on the cusp as we shift from one year to another. We're actually opening up the year with this kind of birthing energy. And speaking of birthing, that's also interesting thinking about the Pluto stuff, because Pluto is associated with death and rebirth. And so with it taking that last turn through Capricorn, it's sort of like whatever old energies were tied into Capricorn, both collectively and individually, those things experience some kind of a death and then they get reborn. When Pluto left Capricorn this fall, it's like the death of the old. And now that we are entering into the new year with this new moon energy, we begin with a brand new slate for Capricorn. So I guess think about what you want to write on that new slate. What kind of seeds do you want to plant? How do you want to move forward with this new Capricorn energy? So again, we are in a Mars retrograde right now. That's the kind of keynote that we start our year with. Mars is retrograding. It starts in Leo and then it backs up into the late degrees of Cancer before it goes direct on February 23rd. This is an important theme for this year because we're moving between fire and water. And there are multiple alignments going on this year that are dealing with these two elements. We'll talk about that in a second. But just be conscious of that. Water and fire, like these are two elements that in astrology, they're adjacent to each other, which would make them what we call semi-sextile, which means they're within 30 degrees of each other. It's technically positive minor aspect, but it's very challenging to kind of harness that energy because they're two different elements. They don't understand each other. That's how you put out fire. You pour water on it. Or if you add fire to water, it boils. It's very agitating. They kind of don't agree with each other. But what's really interesting about these two elements is that they actually do share a lot in common, especially when you consider them on the spiritual level. In traditional astrology, before we discovered these outer planets, Jupiter co-ruled both Sagittarius and Pisces. Now, Sagittarius and Pisces are squaring each other in an astrological chart. They're 90 degrees apart, which means that they disagree. They are they want different things. Sagittarius is very optimistic and it's outgoing and it wants to just kind of push and it wants to talk about ideas and it's not afraid to really put itself out there and to expand and explore. And Pisces is more mellow and it wants to go deep and it wants to connect emotionally and it doesn't really like all that loud, pushy energy. It's just calm down. I say that with so much love. I have a stellium in Sagittarius, so talking about myself here. What's interesting, though, is when you consider the spiritual aspect of it, because Sagittarius and Pisces are both very spiritual signs. Jupiter's like the planet of higher wisdom. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. It's the higher heart, and it's all about consciousness and agape, universal unconditional love. And Jupiter is really about seeing higher truth with a capital T and expansion. So it's interesting because even though these two signs square each other, they are actually very similar. They're both very spiritual, and they have this ability to look at things either from a deeper or a higher perspective. But either way, they're kind of containing the wholeness of reality, whether it's more of a mental grasp or whether it's more of an emotional grasp. However that's experienced, they're still incredibly spiritually catalyzing signs. And so that's what's interesting about this year is we are connecting water and fire. How do we connect these two elements? This is going to come up for us over and over again through these different astrological alignments. And if you are someone that has a predominance of one of these in your chart, you're probably really good with that element, whatever it is. You express it very well, but you might find yourself struggling with the other one. I personally have a lot of fire in my chart, and I've already had a lot of water brought to my attention, especially when Saturn moved into Pisces. It's really interesting because I never thought that I was a very watery kind of person, but I've been really forced to engage with my water side. Yeah, I can't even go into it all, but there's a lot of wisdom to be found in it, and I have to say it's very balancing. It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds for each of us. Okay, so Venus goes retrograde on March 1st until April 12th. What signs is Venus going retrograde through? She starts in Aries, and then she's going to backtrack into the last degrees of Pisces. So once again, we have fire and water. And in particular, this Aries Pisces theme is a prominent one this year as well. I mentioned before that we've been in a particular eclipse axis, the Aries Libra axis, for the last couple of years. We're going to have the final Aries eclipse of that axis on March 29th. And then we're done. We're not going to have any more Aries Libra eclipses for whatever it is, like 6 years or something. Yeah, that's really interesting because it's a solar eclipse, and it's like the final eclipse of Aries. So it's sort of, again, like a crescendo of this energy. I find it really interesting because I don't want to like get ahead of myself too much here as I'm looking at my notes, but we have multiple planets that are entering Aries, and then again, Venus going retrograde in Aries. So there's like a theme of like Aries energy starting to burgeon in our lives. And Aries itself is like the baby of the zodiac. You know, it's the newborn, it's the new beginning, it's the ego self, it's the fresh start, it's the soul that just comes into incarnation and is like looking around like, cool, I want to do so much stuff and figure out who I am. I want to charge forward and I've got to be independent and, fight for my life. And all that stuff. So there's a lot of this like new, fresh energy coming in. So again, it kind of ties in nicely with this numerology theme of being in the 3-year push, because next year, as we go into 2026, that'll be a one universal year where we enter the new cycle. So there's kind of this blend between Pisces and Aries, right? Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac before you start over again in the wheel. So we're kind of moving from like endings into beginnings. Pisces is sort of like collective consciousness. It's the ocean of reality. It's the cosmic webbing. It's everything that is interconnected. It is all as one. And when we look at the astrological wheel, it's in the 12th house, naturally. And when you go into Pisces, especially if you're looking at like progress charts and your moon goes into Pisces, it sort of symbolizes reviewing all the different signs that your moon just traveled through. And again, kind of doing that 9 numerology thing where you're asking yourself, hey, what did I learn? It's sort of like figuring out, like, hey, I tried on all these different outfits. Which ones do I like? Which ones do I want to keep? Which ones do I want to, maybe donate, get rid of? They're not very flattering. I didn't like them, whatever. But we're kind of figuring out what we want to take with us, what serves us and what doesn't. And Pisces holds that energy. It's like looking at the whole collective consciousness and then figuring out what we want to keep and what we want to discard before we begin fresh when we enter into Aries. And we have a lot of planets that are shifting into these signs. So Venus is highlighting this for us. She's asking us to go inward and re-examine these things when she goes retrograde through her cycle. Before we can fully move forward in Aries, we have to dip back into into Pisces and re-examine those themes. And then, yes, speaking of Neptune, we have Neptune moving into Aries on March 30th. This is a big deal because Neptune takes, like the other planets, a really long time to move through a sign. So March 30th, it officially moves into Aries. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting because, as I mentioned, we have a new eclipse axis happening with the Pisces Virgo eclipses. As the ruler of Pisces, we could then look at Neptune as ruling that side of the eclipse axis as well. So when it moves into Aries, it's also bringing this kind of energy into the eclipse cycles, which is something to consider. Another interesting thing, talking about water and fire. So any given year, Mercury is going to have 3 retrograde cycles. And whenever it does, it typically retrogrades through one particular element. That's usually how it works. This last year, we pretty much just had Mercury retrograde in fire signs, except for around, August, when it went through Leo. It did dip into Virgo very briefly. This year, 2025, It's also going through fire signs again, but this time it's also going through water at the same time. And there's much more of that shift going on during its retrograde cycle. So we have the first Mercury retrograde cycle, March 14th through April 6th. It starts retrograde in Aries once again, and then it backtracks into Pisces before going direct. Then the second cycle, it goes retrograde July 17th through August 10th. And this time it will only retrograde through Leo. But what's really interesting about that is it's going to be happening during the Lionsgate window. So we're going to have a lot of really, really intense energy around that time. Just a heads up. And then the last retrograde cycle, it's going to be November 9th through November 29th. It's going to start out retrograde in Sagittarius, but then it's going to dip back into Scorpio before it goes direct. So again, we have these water and fire elements that are being highlighted for us. And that final retrograde cycle of Mercury is happening during Ophiuchus season next year. So again, year of the snake, we end the year with this big Mercury retrograde, bridging between these two elements that don't really hold a lot in common. And we're bringing healing into our experience and kind of reflecting on all of that at the end of the year. Okay, more water energy. Jupiter moves into Cancer on June 9th. This is going to be a really beautiful energy that we get to experience because Jupiter is actually exalted in Cancer, which means that it holds like a lot of awareness, and it's kind of a nice placement for Jupiter. It's more comfortable there. And again, we have water. And then Saturn. So Saturn's been in Pisces since early 2023. And it's going to take its first steps into Aries this year. It's not going to move officially into the Aries until 2026 because it's going to go retrograde again back into Pisces. But we get that first experience of Saturn in Aries energy on May 25th. And then it will retrograde back into Pisces. Again, we're bridging together water and fire. And so it has its retrograde cycle in July, and then it will re-enter Pisces around September 1st. Eventually it'll go direct again and finally leave Pisces on February 14th, 2026. Kind of interesting. Yeah, a lot of water and fire themes going on this year. Very, very interesting. Something to contemplate, especially along with this theme of the snake and transformation and healing and the numerology, the 3-year push coming into culmination in the 9-year. Just very last, I just wanted to mention that we have some prominent moon cycles going on. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these because we have a lot of moon cycles every year. But just a couple of notable ones if you want to make notes of them. We have a new moon in Aquarius on January 29th that is going to be conjunct with Pluto, newly moved into Aquarius Pluto. To stumble over my words a little bit there. Neptune moves into Aries the same day as we have our final solar Aries eclipse, and they will be conjunct with each other. So that's going to be pretty gnarly. And again, that's happening on March 29th, March 30th. We have a new moon in Cancer on June 25th, and that's going to be conjunct with Jupiter as Jupiter moves into Cancer around that time. And we will have a new moon in Leo, which is going to be at 2 degrees of Leo. It will be opposite of Pluto. And this is happening the day before we have our Mayan day out of time, which we have every year, which I think is like July 25th. And then it's right before we start that Lionsgate window, and we're also going to be in Mercury retrograde around that time. So super interesting, and again, really strong energy going on in the summer. We have a Virgo solar eclipse on September 21st, and that is going to be opposite of retrograde Saturn. That's going to be really intense. Just a couple of things to mention there. And then we also have Black Moon Lilith moving into Scorpio on March 27th. So again, more water. So, we do still have Uranus holding down the fort in Taurus, holding down the earth energy in Taurus. And then obviously we have Pluto in Aquarius, bringing in that air energy. But overall, we have a lot of this a lot of this water and fire energy going on this year. And again, just thinking about healing and transformation, it's just going to be really intense, but it's going to be really exciting. I hope that we all make the most of it. All right. Thank you so much for listening. This was a little bit scattered, but I really appreciate your patience and I appreciate your support. Just know you can subscribe to my blog. It is free to subscribe. Yeah, I will catch you guys later. Thank you so much for listening. Love to you all. Bye.